Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for coming to share with us. I want to talk about the methodology. I mean, one of the clear challenges we have on this, how do you do this? How do you measure the before, after, the with, without? The classic approaches we all deal with and challenges on the methodology. And particularly, how do you deal with it? Which the change is potentially just a change in World Bank operational guidelines. I mean, and the idea that a change in the World Bank operational guidelines will change the entire world is something that even those of us who think we should be very arrogant in the development business tend to suggest might not quite work. But what I found really fascinating about it, and I accept the issues about the difficulties of doing this, but I do think, and there is a communication in this that I hadn't realised until I was just sitting and listening down to you, which is if you actually go back to those tables and just say, okay, the PRSC was supposed to be about growth and it was supposed to be about poverty. I mean, everything else, process, let's just talk about the two outcomes. If you look at the reduction in poverty, actually in the table that you pulled out, I wasn't quite sure because you presented it rather oddly, because you presented it, the initial period is a 10-year period, and the period of the PRSC is actually only a 5-year period. And you yet to use the percentages in the same. And you look, oh, well, actually it was less in the second period than it was in the first. But one reason is because you're doing 5 years rather than 10. So now if you adjust for that and just multiply up, what actually the story you've got is an extraordinary one that for PRSC countries, the rate of poverty reduction doubled in the period you had PRSCs compared to the previous 10 years. Now, for operational for a study that was about operational guidelines, the idea you'll be able to measure that in any kind of macro way, I mean, is to my mind is amazing. And also, it was 50% faster than your non-PRSC countries. Now, that is a piece of information that really begs sort of, well, wow, was that really true? And then if you also look at your child mortality rate, you've got 50% faster reduction in child mortality rate over the PRSC period, and than before, and 50% faster than in the non-PRSC countries. So I mean, there's a table there which I think there's some things that are hidden, which I think could be really interesting to draw out, and particularly coming, as you say, where everyone is going to say, well, what was the results of budget support? Surely, and this is the political perception, it was about giving money to corrupt governments and they waste it. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no, that is not the that is not the, even if you don't think there are benefits, that's certainly not the story. The countries where they were seeing quite rotate. Similarly, I think the challenge you have on so in terms of outcomes, some really interesting, on terms of poverty outcomes, some extraordinary things happening there. In terms of, did it improve the public financial management? Yeah, again, another sort of big issue. The problem there, you haven't got a before-after effects. We just weren't measuring it in the 90s. We had no idea how bad things were in the 90s. But again, you have got evidence that in the PRSC countries there is a significant difference, a significant improvement, better than in other ones. Now, except you've got the endogeneity and the problem of the choices around that. And but nonetheless, I think, given where some of the debate is stuck, as I say, which is an even more very unsophisticated level, I think there is a real story. I think, I mean, in a way, my other sort of comment, I suppose, about the valuation is I sort of wish there was just even more than was here. And I think understanding what the institutional impacts of this were, where you move to a situation where you used to go with a structural adjustment credit, you go to the government and say, here's it, it's been negotiated in Washington, please can you sign at the bottom, to, oh, you've got a PRSP that I need to try and respond to and try and engage with. There was, certainly for people who I think, who've gone through that period, there was a complete sea change in the approach, and I think that's had quite a profound institutional impact about it. And I think if you compare the kind of conversations, for all their disadvantages, we're seeing now in many countries compared to what the conversations were 10 to 15 years ago, you wouldn't recognise them as being in the same kind of business. And I think that's, so the institutional change that would happen there, I think, would have been very interesting to have explored too. But, thank you for pulling it out, giving this kind of detail, going through this and putting together the kind of raw material that's in here. I think it was very interesting. Let me stop there.